Jan, are you here now?
สวัสดีค่ะ everyone
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
everyone
สวัสดีครับท่าน
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับอาจารย์
Does anyone have a topic they would like to start with? Last weekend, I think you were asking and discussing about the perfections, and Ajahn was stressing the patience to be the understanding person. If there's more understanding of realities now, it is a condition for more patience, more understanding of others too, because no matter what the accumulations, they're still just different conditioned realities arising and falling away, not belonging to anyone. So without understanding, none of these other perfections can develop. And
Yes.
we use the word perfections, but the understanding and the qualities have to develop.
Yeah, the kusala qualities, yeah, that are the perfections. Just a minute, I'm just going to see if we've got. Heine may join us. That would be good. Yes, that was a very helpful discussion last week. I found about the perfections generally, and with the editing of the book too. It was very helpful. Because understanding is the key.
As in another discussion, maybe that it was with Sundara, it's so important, the understanding that it is just the reality, letting go of the idea of self rather than any trying. And the more understanding of the truth, the more understanding there is of what is read in the text. And no matter what is said in the book, there's no rule about where to go or what to do. It's all about just understanding now. Otherwise, we think about rules and situations and where it's better to go and just forget all about this very moment.
Right. And there's without the understanding, there's someone trying to do something to hasten the development of
trying to follow a plan, trying to go to a particular place or study a particular reality.
And that's a big hindrance, huge hindrance.
Big hindrance. And I think, I don't know if it was last week or it might have been a couple of weeks ago when there was someone may have asked about, or there might have been a discussion about killing and also thinking about others' good and bad qualities and this and that. But what about the reality now? What about the reality now whilst thinking about killing or thinking about good and bad or thinking about others? It all comes back to this very moment. So I think the more understanding, the more confidence there is to just understand what appears now. And this is how the paramis develop, the patience, the kanti, which is more than just ordinary virya, the confidence and the strong patience that it has to be just life at this very moment. Otherwise, we just think of times and occasions and places to go and just forget about this very moment.
Yes.
So no matter whether in India or in Canada or anywhere else, in the forest or in the city, it's still just seeing now, hearing now, kindness, meanness, different realities to be known.
Right. Always. And thinking of
Alberta, go on, go ahead.
thinking of the perfections, that, you know, how right understanding is basically the foundation on, you know, on which the perfections are built. If there isn't right understanding, the perfections won't develop. But often think of right understanding it not necessarily in terms of right understanding of what is appearing now, but right understanding, the story of right understanding. So I think, yeah, it's important, as you're doing, to point out the difference, to point out that it's understanding of what appears now that is to be developed.
Otherwise, if it's just the story about killing is bad and this is good and that is bad,
Right.
but it's not getting closer to understanding right now, the seeing now,
Right.
the hearing now, the attachment now.
For sure. I think what I was thinking of, Sarah, was how understanding develops naturally in daily life by conditions, no other way.
Yes.
And that, of course, is the understanding of what is appearing now.
Exactly. It has to be, because there's no other time, no other moment. So it's not the word in the book, it's not the other situation, it's not
Right.
doing this, it's not even opening the book or coming to the discussion, but it's the understanding at this very moment. But there has to be a lot of hearing and considering and wise reflection to really appreciate the point. Otherwise, there's always the thinking of different scenarios and different rules.
Right.
The strong clinging to self, which is so used to wanting to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. And you know, when we read about the perfections or many of the things in Dhamma, it's not always sort of the language of the ultimate truth that's being spoken. Panya develops. So often it's written in the we develop. We can do this. We should do that. Which, unless understood, sort of that the meaning behind that is actually Panya develops, you know, more the language of the ultimate truth. You can go so far wrong. I mean, I believe even the Satipatthana Sutta leads in that direction, unless one understands.
Without understanding, there's the idea that one should sit cross-legged under the trees, or go back to where the Metta Sutta was taught, or it's always the idea of particular activities or places or what I should do. So that's why there has to be the right understanding.
Or generosity develops by me giving this, giving that frequently. Yes. Yeah.
We had this discussion in the Vietnamese session yesterday, where the common ideas is of doing more good, being a better person, but without understanding, there's not even understanding, there's no knowing of what is good, because there's no understanding of what the reality is now.
Yeah.
How is there any knowing of whether it's clinging or metta or generosity now without understanding? It's just an idea of a story about a situation.
Right, and thinking that this is it. This must be metta. This must be done.
That's right.
Well, there may unknowingly be moments of that. We don't know.
And it's the same, it also leads to the judging of others. Oh, this one has a lot of metta, or this one's doing a lot of giving, but actually no idea at all. There's no idea about the citta now. There's no idea about the others. Citta is just speculating, leading further and further away from the truth at this moment.
Right. Speculating is a good word. Sorry, Pina's trying to connect here. Okay.
Sarah, I have a question about the Vietnamese discussion. I'm on about 2 or 3 occasions, I'm unable to get in. So have they changed their system of accessing the Zoom?
I'll send you a note afterwards. Yes,
okay.
I think it's a different link. us put a note on DSG or
Yes,
Thanks,
Yeah.
Sarah. Thank you.
I'd like to access it too.
Yeah. I also have another question, and it's from the Sutta Nipata, and it's the Paramataka Sutta. And there's a section in it where it mentions well, it says desire, hatred, and delusion, or fear. Now, what is that fear? I would have thought that fear is dosa. So what is the fear that's mentioned in this? Do you know?
it's probably just emphasizing that particular kind of dosa, the fear. So sometimes this is quite common. They might say attachment or clinging. Well, actually, they're both lobha, for example. So hatred or fear, they're both dosa, but just pointing to different aspects of dosa. But I'd have to look at the sutta.
Okay.
Sure.
I think it sort of says, being fearful when, because they're talking about the bhikkhu, when going to the forest, feeling fear of being, just fear in the forest. So I guess that's what it means. So that's basically, it's just another word for dosa.
It's an aspect, a kind
Aspect
of
of.
dosa. Yes.
Okay.
So like whether it's fear of this or that, or whether it's anger, it's dosa, cetasika, but different kinds of dosa. And it's a good example, like we were just saying. Yes, it's not about the place. One can be in the quiet forest with lots of dosa, lots of clinging. And this is repeated again and again. So this is why it's about understanding the accumulation at this moment, not about the place that one goes to.
Okay, thank you. Because I was thinking, well, the fear would go along with unpleasant feeling, like dosa is always connected to unpleasant feelings.
Always
yeah.
unpleasant feeling, yes. I think we discussed quite a lot about fear in the Saturday discussion when people were asking about fear of death. It can be fear of anything, but it's always with unpleasant feeling, and usually because of clinging to oneself, clinging to sense experiences, which conditions fear when it's not as one would like it.
And I think, Azita, that perhaps fear is especially appropriate for the situation of being alone in the forest, because I can remember one to other suttas where monks who thought they could handle it went to the forest, but it was fear that was their undoing, and they were unable to continue that life.
Yeah, that's what this sutta mentions, that they just can't, they have to go back into the, the village or something. Yeah. Okay.
And there was the sutta about the Buddha's attendant who kept asking to leave to go to the forest, to go to the mangrove grove, to live quietly. And the Buddha several times discouraged, and eventually he went and was overwhelmed by fear. So it's common. People have the idea of the forest, the quiet place, as being the secluded situation, but it's not the understanding of true seclusion without clinging, without ignorance at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
John, can I ask, is it fear to be alone in the forest? Is it the right way to put it? I would think that when one goes in a forest and is fearful, is because of not being alone. I mean, fearing other living beings which can maybe kill him or whatever. It's the fear is about it's related to other not being alone, actually, if you know what I mean.
Well, it is, as I would assume, it is fear related to, as you say, the possible presence of other beings that are not seen, not normally known about, so spirits and the like. But I'm not 100%, I'm not sure about that. And if you want to characterize that as fear, it's fear of not being alone, rather than fear of being alone. That's possible, I suppose. But I don't think it helps. It's fear that drives them out of that situation.
And it depends on different accumulations, like when we discussed with Nina, there can be fear of death, the fear of other animals, fear of other beings, fear of just being left on one's own, fear of starving, thinking because of clinging to all kinds of different stories, different experiences, clinging to oneself. But it's still just fear.
And I'm inclined to think that if there was a companion there, then there wouldn't be the same reaction. There wouldn't be the same fear anyway. So in that sense, it is the fear of being alone.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect because of, as you said, it can be being alone as not being with a friend, and being alone as not being with an enemy. Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, when talking about fear, it's the way it can appear. It's different ways and different aspects. Yeah.
Can I read out a little bit from this? It says here, not taking sides amongst those who are divided. That's the from the actual sutta, and then like the commentary on it, among those who are riven by different views, different opinions, different preferences, different beliefs, among those who adopt a course of action motivated by desire, hatred, delusion, or fear. And so I was thinking of this war that's going on and the fear that's generated. So maybe that fear doesn't just include being alone in the forest, but it mentions not taking sides amongst divided people. So yeah, maybe it covers something like that as well.
So is that term referring to the divided? Is the expression about delusion and hatred and fear referring to the divided people or to the individual?
Among those who are riven by among those who adopt a course of action motivated by desire, one does not adopt a course of action. So it's talking about the many that are driven by those four things. One is not taking action, but one does not adopt a course of action motivated by desire, lust, desire, hatred, delusion, or fear, or by lust, hatred, delusion, conceit, views, restlessness, doubt, or the latent tendencies. So that one is somebody who's quite developed.
Because the tendencies there are there, the accumulations for greed, hatred, fear, delusion. So those are, but for the one that develops understanding, when as the perfections are developed more and more, then one is less influenced, less driven, less guided by the hatred, the ignorance, the fear, and so on. More and more protection from those qualities as understanding develops on and on.
Yes, this particular sutta seems to be focused on views of others, you know, and the one being either inferior or superior.
And that's
yeah.
And that's why those tendencies, like as I mentioned before, thinking about others good or bad or whatever, all those tendencies can arise anytime, whether alone in the forest or thinking about the situation in Gaza or at home or watching a movie, because the habits have been accumulated. And that's why when we were talking about the 3 gotras, the habit of considering and attending wisely to the object of understanding, the truth, has to be cultivated on and on until it is more and more of a protection from these other habits of thinking about these situations with unwholesome tendencies. And this is how the paramis, the perfections, have to develop too. Let's see if Jan would like to add some comments to any of these topics.
At moment of no understanding of the truth, it conditions all kinds of realities. That's all. Is it right? Anywhere, anytime, any situation, when there's no understanding of the truth of whatever is there, it conditions different realities arising by accumulation and conditions. That's why as long as there is more and more understanding of what is there, it cannot stop conditions to condition that particular reality to arise at all. So at that very moment of fear, when there is understanding of it, it's just a moment and it's only thinking, because now is the fear of that which is seen, only that which is seen, or fear of sound at moment when it's there heard, impossible. But there's no understanding yet about the truth. That's why the more clinging, the more ignorance conditions such different moments, on and on, more and more, enormously, from moment to moment. That's why the understanding of the truth can protect whatever is there arising to be as fear or attachment or aversion, stage by stage. That's why it has to be the clear understanding, a little more of moment of seeing, hearing, because all day there must be that which appears through one of the 6 doorways. And even the word, it cannot just be heard and considered, but the characteristic of a reality right now needs words as the base for developing understanding gradually about this moment. Who knows? We just talk about citta and cetasikas. It's there all the time, but they are different. For example, at moment of attachment, it can be known, I like this so much, and when there can be moment of understanding the characteristic of attachment to that very object. But What about seeing right now? Is there any clinging to that which sees because of no understanding the truth of it that is different from that which is seen? It's there all the time. That's why we need the word of truth from the enlightenment to consider the truth in different manners or different aspects. That's why we begin from moment of birth in order to just understand the reality which arises and experience the object, to know that it's not the object which is experienced, but it's the experience itself. How can it be differentiated from that which experience and that which appears? Without that which is a chief of experiencing, nothing can arise or appear at all. Nothing can be known or experienced at all. That's why even right now, hearing again and again and again, and attend to the truth from moment of birth. What is there? The reality which experiences the object has to be there, to be life, to be living being. Otherwise, it cannot be the moment of seeing right now or any moment after birth. But since it's there, different moments of the reality which arises and experiences the object, but no understanding of that yet, because usually there is attention to only that which appears as it is, even hearing that which appears as what is there as something. In truth, it's not as we take it. So real, a flower, a tree, a person, and whatever is there in life all the time. That's why understanding that the truth is so very subtle. It cannot be known instantly. It takes quite a long time. That's why understanding just a moment of the truth, even it's not clear yet, it's vague, but it's there. That can be gradually understood, the truth of it, as just it's different from other reality. That's why that which is the chief of experiencing, we are talking about, to get closer and closer to that which is forgotten all day or all life, no understanding of it. That's why consider what is heard a little more in order to wearing away ignorance and attachment which covers up the truth. When there's no understanding, no hearing, no considering about the ultimate truth of this moment, it's only a moment. Even it does not appear as a moment yet, but it is en route to understand the truth of what is there until it develops enough to be known. What stage you sit, it's only intellectual understanding that it's there, so it's true, it can be known, and they are different. That which experiences is not that which appears at all. Begin to have that as upa, nisya, culture, by conditions, not trying to have it, but when it's there, it shows how much understanding or no attention to the truth at all. Just listen and take it for granted. It's the experience and object. That's why when we read Tipitaka, the truth is there. So very helpful for considering, because without hearing the truth, it's one's own thought about this and that. But each word of truth is so very deep that it let go the idea of self, or I can do, or I can try, and have patience more and more, inspire me to know that it's quite so far from this moment to understand the truth that of that which now arises in false way. But the truth is there, as it has to be, as it's experienced by the enlightenment. That's why learning about how much ignorance and attachment and other kinds of akusala or wholesomeness are not known as they are at all. Beginning to have the development of letting go, not trying to do anything, but without the words of the teachings about what is there more and more. It's impossible to consider by oneself what is it. That's why at moment of hearing any word from the teachings of the enlightenment, it has to be considered more careful to understand that it's so deep, it's so subtle. That's why even right now it appears, it does not appear as it is. And this is the only way, hearing, considering. That's why we discuss on what is said in the text. They are all there here to be known and can be known little by little, gradually. Otherwise, it's so dark, no understanding of what is there at all. Years and years ago, so the light of the truth at moment of hearing can be clear and clear, lighter and lighter, or brighter and brighter in the word, but in truth, it begins to understand the depth or the subtlety, the profoundness of what is there, that it can be known only by the words from the enlightenment who develop great parami, best of all, not by anyone as him, to just understand what is there at moment of enlightenment as it is. That's why we here again talk about it again. What about the different angle of the teachings or the manners, the aspects as ayatana, to know that why Buddha taught about ayatana, just this moment, what is there at any time, any moment, even it's different from this moment, as there can be attachment or aversion or hearing and so on. Each reality there can be understood and can be directly aware of with understanding developed gradually, little by little. And this is the path, the only way to understand a little more of that until it appears as it is. Unexpectedly, always unexpectedly, at moment of expecting, it is the wrong understanding by way of the teachings about it as karma. We are looking for, search for all the time for the sensuous object, for being, living, and for the way to understand or to enlighten the truth wrongly when there's not enough understanding. So even the path or the way to understand is so very subtle, because it has to be now, this moment. We learn to understand this moment as it is, one reality at a time, because when they are together, it cannot let go the idea of something or someone or I at all. That's why the precious moment is moment of understanding, even so little, but it's there enrooted to grow, to develop, to understand, to get closer to this moment. That's why we hear again, read it again, consider it again, to have understanding that in truth, it's a moment of experiencing no one at all. That's why we learn to understand the truth of the word that we have heard and talk about, like that which experiences the object, that which sees, that which hears, and that is the moment of birth. The object does not appear, but that which experience does not appear to right understanding yet. But it's exactly the same when the object does not appear. It's there for sure, because it arises to experience an object. Even the object does not appear, it's there. Like moment of sleeping, it's there. Not die yet, because of that which keep on arising and falling away, on and on and on, by conditions that it cannot stop arising and falling away at all, depending on each different moment to be seeing or death or birth or whatever is there. Little by little, gradually, that's why in a day, daily life, natural life, what is conditioned and accumulated can pop up at level of thinking or no thought about it, or begin to change, to understand whatever is there taken for living being is only the reality which arises to experience. So no one there at all, no matter rich or poor, seeing is there, hearing is there, or we are talking about, learn about it to be known, is there at different moments. That's all. Very natural, very patient, very firm confidence, little by little. And that's the way the path develops, naturally, unknowingly. But right understanding begins to develop gradually in life, unknown, right now. Whatever can condition attachment because of understanding that actually there's not anyone know me at all, because seeing is conditioned to see the way it is for different living beings, that's all. Otherwise, what's the point of reading the Pitaka or discussing or thinking, considering, just to understand the ultimate truth of this moment or any moment? That's why no regret of the past that, oh, it's not be the object of understanding and so on and on and on. But what is there now? The truth is there. Even how much understanding is there. And letting go, not important, all gone. No matter fame, praise, or whatever. It's not that anymore. Just arise and falls away. It cannot belong to anyone because it's not there again at all. And this is life changing from no understanding of the truth to be beginning to understand the truth of what is there. To understand that actually what is taken for this and that, so very important, such a situation, only the reality which is conditioned to be different from moment to moment. That's all. Until it's time to understand clearly, because it shows up to the developed understanding enough to understand it, beginning from hearing, considering again and again, to understand whatever is there. Even thinking to listen is conditioned and then gone. And this is the best to understand whatever in life as it is, little by little, right now. Even it's not right understanding of what is there yet, but from hearing again and again the reality which is there from birth has gone and conditioned a moment from moment to moment, experiencing by conditions, whether it experience sound or visible object or smell. It's only the function of that which arises to see, to hear, to think, to like, to dislike, or by conditions. So at moment of reading about the truth, there can be a little more understanding to let go ignorance, which condition attachment in life from moment to moment by conditions. And this is the benefit of understanding what is there in life until right understanding get deeper and deeper to the truth that is there now, so close, not far away at all, because it's there, unknown, unthought about, no one attend to it, so it's there all the time, unknown, until it's known, getting closer and closer to the characteristic which appears from moment to moment, no matter what, unexpectedly. No one can do anything, but whatever is there is conditioned by the accumulation as conditions for whatever arises now. So life is as it is, with understanding, different from without understanding. And it goes on from hearing, considering, more understanding, little by little. So it changed from no understanding of the truth from birth to death into the moment of understanding it, that which is there now, little by little, by conditions. That's why we're developing the conditions to understand what is there as it is, even if quite so far away or so very long time before there can be a little more understanding of the truth. But it is that way, no other way at all. So it's right now. Even it's not the understanding of that which experiences the object yet, but the beginning of understanding little by little, it's conditioned. It now sees at all. And at moment of seeing, it's not hearing. So the moment of hearing, it's not moment of seeing. Little by little, it begins to attend to the characteristic of that naturally, gradually, by itself, by having a little more understanding of the truth. At moment of, say, kusala or sati or whatever we're talking about now, to understand that the Dhammas is different one. No I, no me at all. Even it's just the intellectual understanding. But without it, how can it be known? Gradually. That's right. Parami is there now. Any moment of understanding, more or less, by conditions. So we can talk about the words in Tipitaka to have a little more understanding of the truth as the conditions of letting go, wrong understanding and ignorance of what is there, which is so very deep. But it's there. But it's so deep that the truth is not known, but it can be known by having a little more understanding of it, little by little, in different aspects. Not just it arises and it experiences the object. That's not enough.
Achan, a moment ago you spoke of it develops unknowingly. Now, it being understanding, yes?
if it does not show up, how much understanding of it can be known? For example, right now or anytime, at moment of just thinking about what is heard is conditioned. Without that moment to be the root or the level or the step to go on more and more, there cannot be any more understanding of that which appears, only the idea that it is a reality. And that is the idea. But it's right, but it's not enough.
You mean it's the right idea, but not enough understanding that it's the right idea?
So now the understanding develops little by little from hearing and considering and understanding of the truth. But the understanding itself may not appear, it may not be known. Now this is understanding, this is not understanding, because if it's so little, the characteristic isn't known. So it can only be known by understanding, which develops to know that characteristic of understanding when it appears. So it develops unknowingly, it develops even though the panya itself may not be known when it's there, when it appears. Like one may say, oh, there's more understanding than there was last year or 10 years ago or last month. But when understanding is there, when it appears, is it understood? Otherwise, it's just developing unknowingly, like the knife's handle just gradually wearing away.
Right, but for it to develop unknowingly, it has to arise, doesn't it?
It has to arise, it has to accumulate, otherwise it's not developing at all. And so that's why there has to be confidence that it is developing and that what is understood, what is heard is right.
Right.
And the same with sati. It's accumulating, it's developing, but is the characteristic of sati appearing? Is it known when there is sati at this moment?
John said something pretty similar, almost the same with regard to the development of the perfections. It's there, it's unknowingly, but it's there to
They're
be built.
accumulating, yes. The patience is being accumulating, the metta is accumulating, the viriya is accumulating.
Yeah.
I have one comment which may be what you were getting at earlier. I noticed, for example, I just fished out my Sutta Nipata to check what Azita was referring to. And I just happened to notice that parami is not translated. And actually perfections as we use in English is not a strictly accurate translation, because when we read about the paramis, these are the qualities, the factors that have to be developed and perfected in order for enlightenment to occur. So they have to develop to be perfected. So when they're translated as perfections, it is a little bit confusing because it suggests they are perfected from the start, which of course is not true. So it's a little bit difficult. Maybe they should just be referred to as the qualities to be perfected.
That's interesting because this morning I was listening to a recording from, I think it was 2004, I think it was 2005 actually. And the topic was talking about, there was a bit of debate about the Eightfold Path, Samma Sankappa, which is right thinking. However, it was mentioned then, and it then it dispersed it a bit more. It wasn't cut and dried thinking, because thinking vitaka comes along all the time with vijara. So and then I thought, well, the Eightfold Path is not just those 8 Jeta Seekers. There's a whole lot of other Jeta Seekers involved as well, and the moments that arises, isn't there? So
Always
it
a minimum
broadened
of
it for me. It was good.
19, yes. Yes, so when translating Samasankapa as right thinking, it's a little bit misleading, because actually vitaka arises after seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching with all the other citas. And when it is Samasankapa, the Eightfold Path, it is the vitaka arising with the direct understanding of reality, which usually we wouldn't refer to as thinking. It leads the right understanding to directly understand its object. But we just do our best with translations.
Yes, sure. Well, and I think in that particular discussion, it did mention that the Samasankapa, the right thinking, leads understanding onto the object.
Right.
And it was really, really good. Yeah, so
Without the vitaka, without the Samasankapa, the understanding couldn't understand the object.
yeah. And unfortunately, in some translations, they call it right intention, which is quite wrong, isn't it?
Well, it's right intention is quite wrong, because intention is chetana, but even right thinking is not.
It's not quite
very clear either. So
right.
In my Dhamma now, I didn't translate it, but then if I'm giving a quote from a text, you have to just stick to the translation that's used. So
Certainly, yeah.
yes. So that's why it comes back, as Ajahn was stressing last time, the more understanding, whatever one reads, it will be understood correctly. If one has the idea of certain places being preferable and things to be done, whatever one reads will be read wrongly. So it always comes back to the understanding now.
Sarah, when you say you in your book mentioned, I think it was vitaka as what would you consider to be a more accurate way of describing it than thinking?
I think in Dhamma now, I mean, in the quotes I just quoted, but when I was referring to it, I just explained in more words what it was, how it's the reality that leads the citta and cetasikas to the object, and how it has to be there with each citta, other than seeing, hearing, smelling, and tasting and touching, leading the citta and the other cetasikas to. In the text, they sometimes talk about mounting, like mounting a horse, mounting on the object, leading to the object. So I don't think one word can quite capture it.
No, it's interesting that thinking was chosen, though. I've found that a bit of an impediment for a long time.
Yes.
Trying to work out in my mind what thinking is. And it was with a discussion with Ajahn last time I was there that it finally became clearer. First of all, it's to distinguish it from seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. It's not part of the sense processes, but yeah, it's been a difficult one.
Even in the sense door processes after the seeing, the other cittas, even the Sampaticana and Santirana, they need vitaka to experience the object. They need more cetasikas, and even the kusala and akusala cittas in the sense door processes need vitaka, even though we don't usually think of that as thinking in the sense door process.
Exactly.
So
John was grasping the object. Yeah, grasping the object. It's very confusing. But thank you. It becomes less so when you eliminate the word.
And I just wanted to make one quick comment. I know Jonathan's about to say something. Quick comment to Azita about in the passage in the Sutta Nipata, and they talk about not taking sides, not falling onto any view, and not being motivated by lust, hatred, delusion, conceit, views, restlessness, etc. Usually people, this is often misread as the views part, as suggesting there shouldn't be any view at all. But here it's referring to wrong views, Miccha Ditti, not Samma Ditti. So there's no suggestion there shouldn't be any right understanding. So it's referring to wrong understanding, the abandoning of wrong understanding. And it comes up quite a lot in the text here.
Thank you. Yes. It's interesting, isn't it, how the mind works? Because when I was reading, I was thinking of the views of people around at the moment, the things that are going on, and people with their different views, and most of it all is a kusala. But I didn't even think about the kusala side of it. So yeah, thank you for that point.
And even when thinking about the others with their wrong views of hatred and clinging and this and that, what about the wrong view at that moment when thinking of the others existing, yes, the others as having their views and their hatred? So actually, so many moments of wrong understanding that slip in all the time, even now, thinking of others and their understanding or patience or so and on, so and so.
Yeah, thank you.
And just getting back for a moment to Anne's question about why vitaka is translated as thinking. I think there are suttas or texts that explain the path factors individually, and in explaining samasankappa, which is the mental factor of vitaka, it refers to ways of thinking correctly. And so I'm just assuming that from that, the vitaka is then given the meaning of thinking.
Do you remember, Jonathan, what the ways of thinking correctly are?
I'd have to check. I'll do that and see if I can put something up on the list.
Interesting, yeah. Thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it, when it's described in such detail like this, that when we supposedly think we're thinking correctly, that's so gross that it's just it's crazy. It is a crazy world that we think we're thinking correctly or incorrectly or whatever. But when those jitters and jetta seekers looked at more clearly, it's wonderful that we're learning about them.
As soon as it's wrong understanding, for sure.
Yes.
I thinking rightly or wrongly.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
No summer.
Okay, and I've just come across the reference to the ways of thinking. If samasankappa is translated as thinking, then, and what is right thinking? Thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of non-will, intention, thoughts of harmlessness. This is called right thinking.
That's interesting. It sounds like a substance of right thinking, which differs from the idea of mounting or leading to an object. I don't know. You can, you can't straighten it out, but it's different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think ideas of mounting may confuse people perhaps even more, but I think Jonathan's alluded to those ones. I was just trying to remember them. The Pali, I believe, is Nekkhamma, which is literally non-attachment, literally no karma, not the sense of, again, that's confusing because people think of the word, I'm talking about karma, I'm talking about sensuality. That's why I think pronunciation can confuse people. I often hear people say karma, and the Thai word is gum, of course, and the Pali word is kamma. It's a lot clearer. And karma, of course, relates to sensuality, and it's related to the English word carnality. So, and of course, there are many different levels. So when we think of carnality, we're thinking of kind of the deep end of sensuality, if you like. But karma, like this is the karma loka. This is the world of sensuality as opposed to the arupa loka and the rupa loka. This is the karma loka, the world of sensuality. So those, perhaps before I continue, I think it's also important to realize that we can say that understanding is not the word. The words can kind of indicate a pathway or a way to travel, potentially. That's why we need the continual consideration and careful, very careful consideration of what they words, what they really mean. It's like there is a continual triangulation, if you like. We look at things from many different aspects. And this aspect that Jonathan just mentioned of renunciation, which is the Pali nekkhamma, which literally means no indulgence in that at that particular moment. Of course, doesn't mean to say that we can't just renounce lobha, which is just another word for lopa, of course, nekkhamma. Sorry, no, I misled you there. Sorry, nekkhamma, renunciation, or non-binding on or non-sensuality to the object, which there will be at the moment of understanding. But of course, that can't just be gotten rid of. Attachment just can't be gotten rid of. That has to be done with the very patient application of understanding. So we need always to look at things from many different aspects. The other aspect that Jonathan mentioned there was avihimsa, non-harmlessness. Of course, at the moment of nekkhamma, or non-binding on or non-attachment, if you like, at that particular moment, there will be avihimsa. There will be no harming at all, which is kind of very appropriate in today's world, and we've got that madness going on over there, where there's this kind of mutual victimization of self and the other all the time. So this is why I think we need to always be very careful with thinking that the translation is the words. Sometimes, like I was looking at that word recently, sometimes translated as dangerous, which the Pali word is just escaping me at the moment, and it's often translated as loathsome. The words can confuse, but the understanding, when there's understanding, there will not be confusion at any particular moment. So it's always important to, it's like the word, again, I often hear the word asubha, one sometimes they're translated as foul. It's just the beautiful and the unbeautiful, or what is, so I think words can take one down a path that may not be so helpful. Adinawa is the word I was trying to think of, which is translated in the Siddhi Magga as dangerous. But if you look in the Pali dictionary, it's translated as loathsomeness. What is worthy of being of loathing, if you like. So we have to consider it carefully from those different aspects. It's like Bhayanyana, the wisdom, the knowing of fearfulness, which sounds like a contradiction. So there's always needs to be an ongoing careful consideration of just what these different words can mean in relationship to understanding. And I think it's potentially very easy to be misled by the translation, because Ajahn has pointed out often, and I appreciate what she says, is that you can't look up in the dictionary understanding. You can't do that. that has to be done through very careful consideration of just what those words may relate to. And then it's that ongoing consideration. If that's not happening, and that, of course, will come down to the reality that appears. And if that is not followed, then no amount of translations will help. Whether you translate this word like that word or this word in that particular way, they are kind of guides. Because if that was the case, we could just read the Buddha's teachings in Pali or the translations in English, and we would understand. But we don't. It has to be much more than that. There has to be much more than just considering the translation, because some words are very emotive, and this can be a condition for more dosa, potentially, like the word, dangerous. It's dangerous. Yes, that's one translation, but it may not be so helpful for some people, or who knows. So it'll always come back to what reality is appearing, which will enable understanding to grow of just what those words are referring to. Otherwise, so John said, you can't look up, you can't look up understanding in the dictionary. It can't happen. I mean, as I said, if it was like that, we could just read it and understand it, but it's not like that.
And this is what it says in the Visuddhimagga about Vitakka. Herein, applied thinking, Vitakama, is applied thought, Vitakka. Hitting a point upon is what is meant. It has the characteristic of directing the mind onto an object, mounting the mind on its object. Its function is to strike at, and it is manifested as the leading of the mind onto an object. So at the moments of understanding, or whenever any of the cittas arise, it leads or it directs the mind onto the object. Without Vitakka, the object couldn't be experienced. And no matter whether it's with moments of nekama or what kind of thinking it is, it always has that characteristic.
So leading the mind, meaning leading citta onto the object.
Leading the citta and the other citta seekers to the object.
Right. That's good. That's a good explanation. Thank you. Leading it. Okay. Fantastic.
And I'm just looking at a note about Vitakka, Vichara, and their translations. And it appears that the term Vitakka does mean thought in many, other than in the context of the mental factor or path factor. It does have the meaning of thought. A couple of examples: Kama Vitakka, meaning sensual thought, or its opposite, Nekkhamma Vitakka, thought of renunciation. But when these terms occur as constituents of the first jhana, for example, they do not exercise the function of discursive thinking that is characteristic of ordinary consciousness. Rather, Vitakka is the mental factor with the function of applying the mind to the object, and Vichara with the function of examining the object non-discursively in order to anchor the mind in the object. So it seems that their more general meaning is thought. So that's why, I guess, as a mental factor, they are also translated as thinking. But that's not anything, that doesn't fit to what their function is.
Yeah, that's why I think
in those jhanas, is it the second jhana where Vitakka is dropped?
Right.
Yeah.
And then Vichara, yes, yes. So it arises in this realm with every citta other than seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, without any attainment of jhanas, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I think, again, it's like the context always needs to be considered. I believe the Pali word for thinking is takkati. So obviously we get the word vitakka, which is like an intensifying prefix in front, that we. So that is often usually, sometimes it's translated vitakka or sammasankappa. Again, you can see the kappa in there, which is another word for thinking, kappati, I believe. You can see that we have to consider very carefully in the context and what it means. This is how I read it, certainly, that it's so easily to be misled by translations. You know, and Visuddhimagga was being spoken about before, and one of the words there in that aspect about adinawa, which is translated in Visuddhimagga as dangerous, in other places it's translated as loathsome. And we can see that connection. In that same section of the Visuddhimagga, there's the word yoga vachara, which is translated as the meditator. But the yoga vachara, which is translated as meditator in the Visuddhimagga, can be also, as we know, be very misleading. What is the meditator? What does that really mean? And we know that often, especially in the West or anywhere really in the Buddhist world, we have this idea of somebody who's, you know, crossing his legs or whatever. The word yoga vachara literally means someone who is bound in this particular realm to the present object. That's how it ideally could be translated. But even if we translated it that way, yoga vachara, as opposed to meditator, as somebody who's in the realm of being bound to the present object, it could still be confusing to people. So whatever word you use, you're always going to have potentially problems about the development of understanding, because it'll always come down often to, you know, what was brought up yesterday or the day before, just recently, about this aspect of thinking, because there is vast accumulations of ignorance, we will be misled by that. So it needs to be the continual application, if you like, and that's not the translation of sankappa as right application of mind, as opposed to right thinking. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, ultimately what word you might use, but as we know, it's always going to be the understanding which will be the vital factor that leads to growth and understanding, not the translation. Oh, we've got to use that word, or we've got to use that word. It's almost irrelevant. It's not the word. It'll always be the understanding that's the important factor, and that can only be developed in the present moment, whatever that reality is. So I think it's important, as I read it, to bear that in mind.
Sarah, we can't hear.
It's not the translation, and it's not even the pronunciation, like karma, which you've mentioned many times. Well, karma is a very common word in English, in every English dictionary, so we use it and people understand, especially in the context. Just like in Thai, they use gum, even though Jan uses gum in Thai discussions, because it's just common word in Thai language. So it's really important not to get lost or caught by the translation or the pronunciation. Otherwise, one forgets the main points and misses what is being discussed. We don't have much time, so let's see if Ajahn would like to add any more about Vitakka or any of these topics.
Dhammas are so very subtle. That's why, after hearing just one word about the reality, it has to be considered again and again and again. And now it's time to be careful considering about the reality, which is so very subtle. How many cetasikas arising in a moment, see, vitakka, phassa, manasikara, and so on, followed by the word thinking inwards about the translation and so on, but it has to be carefully thought about the truth. For example, can vitakka be translated as thinking? Because it arises just after seeing. The next moment, is it thinking, or it just experiences the same object, but it cannot see? So what is different is that it experiences the same object, no matter what is there, but it has its own characteristic, its own function. So at moment of seeing, there are only, not more than that, 7 cetasikas, no vitakka. But at moment of experience the same object as seeing, does it think? If you should think about that by the words, that it's translated as thinking, but to understand, it arises with all jittas, except when we talk about jhana and so on. But in general, it does not arise with seeing and hearing, but it share or experience the same object of seeing, but it does not see. That's why the function of vitakka is there. No matter how we translate it, it does not think at that moment, not mind though, but it experiences the same object by touching. I don't know whether this is the proper word or the best word for vitakka, but it's there, not as manasikara or sanya or other cetasika. Otherwise, it cannot, it lost that object. That object cannot be object of experience after seeing it all. That's why, if this is the way to understand the characteristic and the function of vitakka, what about other moment? Before seeing, it does not see. That moment before seeing does not see. So it needs vitakka as well. And so the function of vitakka is what? Citta arises to experience any moment, every moment, by different conditions, to experience different reality. And the cetasikas arising together. So not at the moment of seeing only and hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. It needs vitakka. If we use the term like mounting or something like that, what about touching? Can it be known or thought by way of mounting? Just consider the truth carefully. It can be if there is the understanding of the function of vitakka, and at moment of experiencing nibbana, see, or any moment of understanding what is now said, vitakka is there. Only when we talk about in general, it does not arise with the 10 citta, seeing and hearing and so on. Vitakka is there, touching the object. Or you can think by way of mounting to experience the object and condition the other to sit on it. Or we can think about the example, and it depends on the understanding of the way it is by such and such word to get closer and closer to the reality and the function of it. And even right now, there are many different realities, but they are different. It's so subtle. What about vitakka and vichara? See, one touch and the other hold that which is touched to be known of whatever is there as object anytime. Is it a little clearer? It cannot be used in particular word or different word, but the function and the characteristic of that which experience the object, if that is not a reality which touches it, it dropped or it's not there to be the object and so on. It's a way to try to understand the truth of each different realities. That's why even it said it thinks, but the understanding of Vitaka as it touches, no matter at moment of thinking or not moment of hearing, whatever is there, can be gradually understand the difference between Vitaka and Vichara and Passa and so on, little by little. Even it has the same object, sharing the same object. Passa can experience Nibbana, see? Because Citta is there. The chief of experience, the characteristic of the object. But Passa is there too. From Passa, the sensuous object, as usual in the day, it arises with any moment of Citta, even at moment of thinking, hearing, considering, understanding, or experiencing Nibbana is there. Different level, but it cannot change its characteristic and its function. That's why learn to understand that at this very moment, which is not seeing, hearing, how can it experience the object? Because of Vittaka, it doesn't let drop or not attend to the characteristic. We use different words for different reality, different function. So when we talk of Passa, it's that which touch the object. For Manasikara, to consider it and on and on. That's why it arises after the Citta, which it's not moment of seeing and hearing and so on, 10 Citta only. It's that what Buddha taught about it because he realized the truth, which is so very, very subtle. How can there be the understanding of the difference between Vittaka and Vichara, see, and so on. Consider any word in Tipitaka to understand the truth of it. So when it conditions a little more understanding of the truth, that can be the understanding of it. But when it's not attended to understand, the moment it's there, it depends on thinking whether it's right or wrong, clear enough or just very simple to take this for thinking and so on. So no matter what is there in word, we consider the nature of the reality, which is not vichara. See, on and on, little by little, to have a little more letting go wrong understanding, which conditions so many different moments to be wrong. And what is meant by wrong sankappa? See, because of wrong understanding.
Vichya Sankappa.
So, when there's wrong understanding of that object, can Vittaka be right understanding, be right Vittaka? Impossible. But it touches whatever wrong understanding, take it. It always touches the object, no matter what object is there. And Manasikara arises with it because it's touched to consider it right or wrong, depending on conditions.
That was wonderful, Achan. Thank you so much. Really good.
So any moment which is not seeing and hearing, vitaka is there, touching the object.
So it's there even with Bhavanga Jita. Must be.
Any moment,
Must be.
any moment. Because those moments do not perform the function of seeing or hearing, just experience the object in a moment only. But as it's achieved, the object appear, the characteristic of the object appear clear to that which experience it as achieved.
Wow. Yes. Wonderful.
And when we have some understanding of the truth of any reality, when we read the Tipitaka, we understand the meaning of the word, no matter what word is used. But if there's no understanding, it's wrong idea again.
Yes. Yes.
And the time is up now.